Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum. If you'd like to support this channel, as Colin Turner's just done before the live show even started, thank you very much to you, Colin Turner, then you can smash the super chat or hit the Patreon or PayPal or crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, then simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, and all those other good places. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Slick James Johnson, Paul, Flatten Earth, Ebon Kim, Chocolate Sane, P. Mars, and Arwin. Good to have you all.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good
morning.
Morning. Any signs of Earth curve? Lots of discussion about personal issues amongst the panel members, but just to get it back onto Flat Earth, let's run through the housekeeping quickly. Any signs of Earth-based curvature?
It depends on the picture.
Depends on the picture?
Doesn't depend on the picture.
That's good. That was
Just
good.
no.
Classic.
That
Obstruction.
was funny though, wasn't it?
Obstruction at a linear rate versus distance. All geometrically flat.
There are no pictures.
Right, so tune into Nathan Oakley channel. This will go out at about 10 o'clock tonight UK time if you want to make sense of why we're laughing at this. But nevertheless, I think I'm going to move it on quickly to axial rotation. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
If you
None
believe
that I
the
could
pictures.
What was that, Slick? Just in the pictures?
Yeah, if you believe the pictures, sure.
I don't think they've got any pictures of it rotating though, have they? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, they've got a lot of CGI, and they claim those are pictures, so it's all the same. They just bundle them all together. It's all the same to them.
Sure, but other than
Not to
Superman
our
flying
You
around
had
it.
one up on Ballbusters.
Say again, Paul?
I said you had one up on Ballbusters that you did over the weekend.
Oh yeah, but that's never going to get claimed as an actual, piece of footage. Although people probably have used it or been fooled by it. That's probably the purpose, right? Nevertheless, I'm not claiming for 1 second that the pictures I put up on Ballbusters, they were just a graphic depiction for why we wouldn't have gas pressure next to a vacuum. So maybe I should move on to that next. Any evidence that we can have gas pressure without a container for all those people who believe in the vacuum of the sky?
None whatsoever.
Nope. Nothing happening.
I did see it on Spaceballs once. It went from suck to blow.
She's gone
but
from
to be
suck
fair,
to
they
blow.
had a
Planet.
barrier. They had a barrier. Come on.
They
Literally.
did. They had a circular
Visibly
dome.
there.
They had a circular dome in
They did.
Spaceballs because the gag wouldn't make any sense. If you had Mega Maid, who's travelling through the vacuum of space, but she's a vacuum cleaner, so the gag doesn't make any sense. And obviously, you can't show the actual second law of thermodynamics violation that is gas pressure next to a vacuum. So they had to put a giant dome around the Earth for that Spaceballs gag to make sense. But anyway, any scientific evidence of gravity?
Nope.
Nothing whatsoever.
Nope. Nope.
Evidence?
There's some
There's
people
lots
that half believe in it.
Yeah. Well,
There are
is a
some
lot
people
of
that
stuff.
there are some people that half believe it, and they got 1 foot in and 1 foot out of it. But I won't mention any names.
I like
Arwin?
it when you say the up force.
Oh, the up force? Oh,
No.
definitely. When you pick up a set of keys, there's a magical force that takes them up into the air. It's amazing.
That's Brenda's up force, right?
Yeah, the force of Brenda. It's equally disproportionate to gravity. It's amazing. Anyway,
But there
Is
is an
that a natural
independent variable,
phenomenon?
though, Nathan. There is an independent variable, though.
What, you?
It's a bird. No,
You-
of gravity.
Well, no,
It's a bird landing.
Well, no. Well, okay. There's no person's involvement in the force of Brenda. You know, the keys magically get their own way up to levitated positions. They do that of their own accord because of that magic Brenda force.
When you gotta say it again, he didn't hear you.
I guess so. Yeah, I said gravity. There is an independent variable for gravity, though. It's bird landing.
Oh,
remember?
bird landing, of course. That magical bird landing independent. No, that would be dependent variable. That's his observed phenomenon.
Oh, right.
So yeah,
I just observed it.
I'm
A
not
bird
even
just
gonna
landed in
try.
front of me.
that's gravity right there. That's your phenomenon. Go forth.
Nope.
Establish the cause.
You could only prove that bird landed in front of you if you take a picture.
Tumbleweed.
Or
Too
it's-
late, man.
Or
Too
it's
late.
not real, right?
Too late with the
No,
gag.
I experienced that bird landing.
I just experienced it though.
Yeah, but take a picture so you can prove it.
But I don't need to prove it to myself. I just experienced it.
What about the
That's
distance to the
right,
sun?
to
Any
yourself.
evidence of the distance to the sun? Quick, let's get this over with. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No, there
It's
is no
close.
distance to the sun.
It's close. I
Could
feel
you back that claim up, Arwin?
I bet you can't back up the contrary.
Burden of proof reversal fallacy from Arwin. Ding, ding, ding.
Deduction.
Well, I can't prove that it is physical.
Enough said.
What
And
can
now
you
they can move.
prove?
No.
What
No,
can you
that's
prove?
not the
That it's
question. That's not the
visible, and I
question.
can
That's not the
prove that
question.
it has an
That's not the
angular
question.
relation.
Hold on. This question's changed. Can you prove there is no distance to the sun, Arwin? That's the question.
Oh, that's a complex one. Can you prove a negative like that? Is that possible?
It's your negative.
No, but it was his question.
You said that there's no distance to the sun, and I'm asking you, can you verify that?
The answer is no.
Right.
Let's see.
Yeah, but if the distance to the sun hasn't been measured it yet, doesn't that mean there is no distance to the sun?
He doesn't put that
Doesn't mean
caveat
anything
in.
of
He
the
doesn't say there is no measured distance, which would be a historical documentation argument, right? So he's saying there is no accurately measured distance, but that's not what Arwin says. Arwin says there is no distance to the sun.
It depends on
Okay.
the approach. I would have to prove the holographic nature, because with holographic things and observations, it can definitely be proven that there is no distance to it, no actual distance, only an apparent distance. So I'd have to fully prove the holographic nature. Can't do that scientifically, though, without deducing or finding the source of it, and that may be just permanently elusive for me. So
Enjoying-
scientifically,
Deduction
no, I can't
means the
prove it.
answer is no.
So the answer is no. Thank you.
Correct.
Isn't there
Right.
a distance to holograms?
No,
I mean, it's
only
still a
apparent.
visible object.
I just want to say hello
but
to our new
there's only
guest.
an
Sorry
apparent
to
distance.
interrupt. Hi, Life is Short. How you doing?
Oh, hey Nathan, I'm just hanging out.
No worries. Good to have you, Travis.
Someone needs to join. Paul, I was talking to Paul on Skype, so that's the reason.
What's up, Travis?
Well, since he's on here, I'd like to ask my question, if that's okay. Maybe that'd be good for everybody to hear for my thoughts on that. Is that okay, Nathan, or do you want to move on?
No, not at all. There's no rules here. Go ahead.
Okay. Life is Short, if you can hear me. My voice is kind of crackly, and I've already had mic issues, so there's double whammy here. I was thinking, and since you're big on perspective, I was thinking there's an apparent distance and apparent things going on in the atmosphere, and I was wondering if there's some way using the angular size or angular ratio or whatever on distance to be able to determine, like, there might be a true distance to an object, but figuring out what its apparent distance is using the angle calculator or angular size calculator. You understand what my question is? Because sometimes, things obviously look magnified. Is there any way possible to be able to determine that you can see that's magnified? Because looking at Tim's photos yesterday, it looks like those things are magnified, but there isn't any way to maybe figure out, that it is, And I know Rob Skiba did that scaling. He did it through scaling, trying to show, a building and the size of the car and all that stuff. But do you think there might be some other way to do that? Just
Yeah.
thought.
So, I guess it's a complicated issue. So here, my thought is that upward refraction is kind of like an inverted prism, right? And a lot of times when you have binoculars or telescopes or things, they'll put a concave lens in front of the convex lens in order to focus the light correctly. And so I think the atmosphere is kind of acting like a biconcave lens split in half almost, such that it's just an inverted prism. And that's why the density gradient increases with height. And that would bend the light in that manner. So to answer your question is, can you ever get a true position of something? I would say you have to do a time lapse, or you have to be filming under conditions like what Red Pill had, where the air temperature and water temperature are almost ruling out refractive issues to a large extent. And so in that footage, if you go watch that footage, you'll see he's seeing miles and miles and miles, and there's just like there's no compression and expansion of the floors like he saw almost every other time he took that footage. And there's no inferior miraging or anything. It's just crystal clear conditions. So to answer your question, you have to rule out refraction, and when you're doing this stuff over water, there's almost always going to be refraction.
Well, that's what I'm kind of saying is, like, could the refraction, doing the angle, even on the refractive image, determine the apparent distance? Like, it could be, let's say the actual buildings in this image here, I'm not sure what the distance is, but it could be, let's say 25 miles. That's actual true buildings are 25 miles away. But because of the refraction in the atmosphere, it could show the apparent distance could be 19 miles or 18 miles. You understand what I'm saying?
Right, because
is that possible to calculate?
Closer to you by magnification or something like that, right? Is that right?
That's kind of what I'm driving at. Is the magnification would pull the image closer to you, so it will be apparently closer to you, but it's not really.
So my answer to that is I'm not sure that it's magnification in the way that we think of it, by the use of convex and concave lensing, like through telescopes and binoculars. I think of it more in terms of having a lens into prisms, because that would make more sense to me in relation to the density gradient. Because if I think of it in terms of magnification, and I'm not ruling this out, by the way, I just can't conceptualize it as easily. But like a water droplet, like in Rob Skiba's stuff, is creating a series of lenses that you're looking through. I don't rule that out. That's certainly a possibility. But it would bring the water line up and the distant image down. And I've actually seen that too. So I'm not ruling that out. But anyway, my point is that I've conceptualized it more in terms of a prism because it makes sense to me in terms of the density gradient.
One of the questions.
That works. It's just some things to think about.
And we also don't see as long along the ground as we do through the upper aspect of vision.
Hey, Travis.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is 10th Man. One of the housekeeping questions is there any signs of curvature? And we all say no. Then when you look at an image through a P900 or something similar, you see the mirage or the mirroring. How do you use that to prove for curvature? When you look at it without the telephoto aspect, it's flat, and when you zoom in, you see mirages, mirroring. That doesn't change the nature of flatness.
Right. Or I thought where you were going was like if you look at Soundly's bridge and it's obviously curved, how do you say that it's not curved? But yeah, I agree with you as far as miraging and stuff. How do you like you brought up the example the other day about the guy who was robbing the bank or something or robbing the ATM,
Yeah.
and you're just looking at that and one person saying, "Look, it's this," and then the other person sitting there going, "Hang on a minute, what about this thing over here?" You know, how can you say that when that's going on? And I think that's kind of just what we're doing. Is they're looking at all this stuff and saying, "Look, curvature," and we're saying, "Hang on, there's definitely other things that can be going on here, and they actually are seem more plausible than what you're saying."
But we have a second reference point, a water. Water doesn't curve. Water finds its level. So can we use
Right.
that?
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Well-
So when they say there's curvature, but then water is the picture they're looking at and saying there's curvature. Yeah, but water doesn't curve. So how can you say there's curvature? We already know how water behaves.
Or Nathan's example when they say, "Look, there's space," and you say, "Hang on a minute, how can space occur when where you can't have pressure without a container?"
Precisely.
So
Yeah, but the problem is now that they say that water can be level while being curved around a ball.
Oh, well, that's just
Please show
nonsense.
it to us.
Well, that's just nonsense. I mean, to answer, I forgot. I think it was 10th Man asking the question. I can't remember if it was exactly your question or not. But either way, we're not looking in Muppet vision, are we? We're not looking at a side profile of flat water. So this water that we're looking at on screen right now, it is, to the most part, flat. Yes, it's flowing. So that aside, the basic principle is that it's flat, and because it's not, it's going to be flowing. So it's slightly going downhill, right? However, we've got, and you can't see in the Hangout, but for the audience's benefit, we've got water down here, and then rising up to the midpoint of this picture, we've got water up here. So what they've done is they've taken an aspect of perspective. It's a perspective hijacking calculation that lets us know we're on a sphere, or alleges that we're on a sphere. So they've taken an aspect of how a picture will present itself to you, or how your vision presents itself, with things rising up to the midpoint. Well, that's not accurate to say that's flat. It is, in terms of its physical properties. Hi, Bill Walsh. How you doing?
Hello.
Hello, good to have you. But in terms of what we are literally presented with on screen, it's not fair to say that, is it? It's rising up to the midpoint. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's where they've done the hijacking and just taken...
and Nathan, we talked about that in that Hangout too, right? Where that was the thing that clinched it for me, that this is, we don't live on a ball, was when they modeled in Muppet Vision the Earth curve calculator. And they said, this is what you're doing. You are looking down across a bulge in order to bring the bulge up to the midpoint of your vision. And then you're like, well, that's strange, because when I'm in a hallway, I know the ground isn't curved, but it's coming up to the midpoint of my vision. So how does those two things gel? And that's because, and that's when we say they didn't put perspective into Earth curve calculators, because Earth curve calculators are, in a sense, they hijack perspective. It's just a natural phenomenon for how we look at the world. The ceiling meets the floor. It's not a bulge.
And that curve calculator only looks at one frame of reference, right? I just don't know how you can get around the tilt of the Earth, the supposed tilt of the Earth, and not have curvature in 360 degrees. Just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, all right. So Life is Short's ATM picture. So is the guy robbing the ATM, or did the machine just not give him his money and now he's pissed, thus hitting the machine?
No, I was just using that the other day. There was the 10th Man gave the example of if someone is looking at evidence and whether or not we can come to two different conclusions based on what we're being shown, and then, you know, is a jury or someone going to have to figure out which one they think is the more reasonable explanation. And so that was it was using his example from the other day. I think I forget the details of the example, but
The
Right.
details,
Right.
the example is an ATM is being robbed, but the camera is filming the whole event. There's a 6.5-foot man doing the robbing, but there's a midget 3 feet tall nearby. So it's in court now. The film is used as evidentiary. And it's clear that the midget's not robbing, it's a 6'5" guy. So the midget gets to go home and the 6'5" guy goes to jail because the camera proved it.
But in reality, we would not stop at the footage, right? We would go to the ATM and see if any transactions were made, if both of those people have an account on the machine, right? That's where we wouldn't just stop at the footage.
right,
The
it's the
footage-
way it is.
The footage
Right.
shows the 6.5 man breaking into it with an instrument of some type. That's his withdrawal code, the instrument, not a code that he punches in like everybody else.
Okay, I got a question to that. What if somebody who is right out of the frame is holding a gun to his head, demanding that he breaks in and get that money or they're going to shoot him? What about that instance?
Oh, very good. Right now, there's a unicorn looking at you to make you say that to me. What if that's true?
No further questions.
A
agree.
unicorn is not a guy with a gun off screen. You must see
That's
the
right.
point of this.
That's right. No further questions because the film is the evidence, not the guy.
That
on the
is not
side
the
with
evidence.
gun.
You can pretend like people stop at the footage because it proves your point, but that's not what happens in reality. So when we're looking at pictures of whoever takes pictures and we're coming up with our deductions, it would be like saying, well, the 6-foot man has a mustache, thus he looks like he would rob the machine. That's where we are at.
No, you're missing the point, and
we
you're
need to
adding
get-
things that you're missing
No,
the point.
we just need to
because-
get further
excuse me.
into this, which is where we cannot get to, which is why
No.
is it actually happening?
No, that's not the case. The case is they go to the camera across the street that shows a panorama, and there is no guy with a gun pointing at the 6'5" guy. There's more evidence. I mean, come on, I can make things up too.
Yeah, so what you're basically doing is you're steering your own hypothetical wherever direction you need for it to work for you. That's all that is.
No, you did it by bringing in the guy that wasn't there. You brought in your hypothetical with a guy with a gun. How dare you say
You're
I'm bringing
suffering-
it?
Sorry, I've got to
You're
just
suffering
interrupt
from
just one
cognitive
second. Hold
dissonance.
on. Are we absolutely certain the midget is innocent?
Well, that's the short version of it. Pun intended.
I mean, I'm putting these pieces together, and as far as I'm
Wow.
concerned, it's the midget that's holding up the guy with his tall and probably got a gun under his coat, and I'd blame it on the midget.
Great, that could be the case.
And see, and this is one of the reasons why I talk about not using hypotheticals, because hypotheticals are not real. And what happens is when you play the hypothetical game, people hold you account for a hypothetical. That's why I don't like hypotheticals. This is why I only deal in reality and experience. I try to stay away from hypotheticals because they are not real.
So
Well,
now you're
it's-
equating a picture to a hypothetical. How do you do that?
I'm talking about your hypothetical picture of the ATM. That's a hypothetical picture. You don't have an actual photograph that we're looking at. You're just given a description. And based off of your description, you're asking people to come up with decisions. And then if they don't come up with the right decision, they're wrong because they don't believe in photographs. My point is, it's a hypothetical. You don't have an actual photograph that we're looking at. So it's invalid.
So Slick, if I gave you a photograph of something, would you say the same thing?
Here's another hypothetical again. See, you got to stop with the hypotheticals.
No, you're equating hypotheticals to actual pictures.
Well, hey, can I ask a question real quick?
Put an
Nathan,
actual picture up on the screen and let's examine it that way instead of your description of a picture.
Nathan, do
Alright,
you have a picture of inferior mirage or anything like that, or some refractive thing?
How
or
about
something?
this?
Yeah, no worries.
Look at my picture, please.
Oh, okay.
Now, Pythagoras and Anaxagoras, they say that, hey, curved surf shadow on the moon. Obviously, it has to be a round ball that casts that curved shadow. Is that a true statement? Is that their hypothesis? Can that be any other case for that assessment?
There
I
could be
like
many
using this.
There could be many assessments. No one's arguing that you can't have more than one viewpoint of a picture. Nathan said it perfectly. How do we know that the midget didn't have a gun under his coat pointing at the 6'5" guy? Well, the 6'5" guy who's going to jail would say, well, he had a gun on me. He would offer a defense. It would become part of the case.
Let's not go there. Let's look at this picture that I'm
Why
presenting, and
not?
we can discuss
Why
it
not?
there.
No.
Because-
Why not go there?
Because other people are asking for an actual picture that we can discuss about, not a hypothetical picture.
But this,
So this-
you're equivocating. Hold on, sorry,
can give-
just stop. We don't know what that's a picture of, and the comparison's being made to something we do know. So, if we ignore the diffraction limit for a moment and just say that we're looking out at something we do know what it is, and we can go there, we can run tape measures down the thing that we're looking at, etc., etc., etc. In the case of this, well, what is it? Don't say the moon. What is it? Right, tell me what it is.
This is a picture of a moon.
No,
and
no,
this is
don't say
a
the
shadow
moon.
that I'm casting
No,
with
no.
one light source.
I know. Don't say the moon. What is it? What is this a picture of? I know what we call it, the moon. What is it?
It's a shadow cast on an object.
How do you know it's a shadow?
I have to show you the object I'm casting a shadow of, which is this. So I've taken more pictures.
Gotcha. Bastard.
And so here's
That's
another
great.
shadow that's cast.
I'm glad it was
This
me
time
that
I'm
walked
showing
into
you
that.
what it is, and it's a flat disk. So I've gotten two different objects, and I'll show you here.
I don't see the problem with this. So you're presenting a photo with, and someone, let's say someone was like, when you had that first photo up there, like, that's the shadow of Earth on the moon. And you're like, huh, I don't know. It could be this. What if it's this, right? I think that's all we're doing. We're just providing like, I don't know that that's what that is. I think it could be these other things. And how we ruled those out,
Yeah, that's good. No facts, right? We're just trying to figure it out, which is great.
Yep, that's all I wanted to present.
So that's what I was going to say. If Nathan had an infrared mirage photo or something like that, and it was presented to Slick, right?
Okay, I'll do that
and
now.
the person says, "Hey, this is curvature of Earth. Look at the buildings are dropped behind the horizon right there." And then what do you counter back with?
I would ask for what evidence do you have of that?
They say, "Look, I can see it. The buildings are gone."
Right, but I would still ask for the evidence. How did you determine? Did you go there and see those buildings over the curve? That's what I would ask. How are you making this determination, this declaration? How are you doing that would be my question.
They say it's missing. I just believe it.
And that's when I explain to them that I'm not part of the belief system, because a belief can be anything. It doesn't make it a reality.
They've got
Right,
Devonshire,
say,
sorry,
or
just to
you could
interrupt,
say,
sorry.
I don't believe that.
Got Devonshire Doc Hall with a inferior mirage.
Okay, say that again now.
Somebody asked me to present something with an inferior mirage. It's on screen.
Right, I was just saying that, if we could present, and then someone's telling Slick, hey, what do you think of this? What's going on here? Why do I see something like this? Or even just that. Let's say they don't even make a claim. They're just like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and put that picture back up, please. Okay, there it is. Yeah, I would. Now, if they asked me what was going on there, I said it looks like a picture, looks like a photo.
The photograph of a trout eating something just above the waterline.
Right.
It's a giant trout.
It's a photograph.
You see it opening its mouth and closing its mouth? It's giant trout.
Yes.
Yum.
It's just a photograph. In other words, what am I supposed to make of it?
Looks like a zoom.
They're asking your opinion, I guess. They're just saying, hey, what's going on here? This is really weird. I keep noticing this in all my photos. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, so how do you find out what's going on?
You'd have to, well, I would say you need to go do a time lapse and figure out how this changes, or if it's always the case, or different days, different cameras. You'd have to do a variety of things.
Okay, so based on your experience, what is this picture telling you, and what facts can you derive from what you're looking at? Only facts, not deductions and not logic. I only want to hear any
hold on.
facts.
I'm the guy that doesn't know in this case, and I'm asking you for your
Okay,
opinion.
don't ask me because I'm not in the photo, so you're asking the wrong guy. I don't subscribe to photos like that. They're
Okay,
just
what if
pictures
you
to me.
what if you took this photo and then you didn't know what was going on? What would you
It doesn't matter because I'm only into experience and reality. I'm not into photos like that. See, this photo thing is your thing. It's not mine.
Okay,
So you
How
can't
is that
ask.
He's
funny?
not into data. He
Oh,
just
How
you're
is that funny?
interrupting, Arwen. You're interrupting. So I'm not into
right.
that.
You
okay?
can ask me. You
Now,
can ask me.
I want to ask you a question, Life. What is your interpretation? Since you're into photos, what facts can you tell me about this photo?
What facts? All right. Well,
Right.
then you'd have to get into what are facts. But
Listen.
I would say I have an hour on it. If you like, in short,
Just the short version. In other words, the short version.
The short version is that it's a total internal reflection.
I buy that.
Now you're saying that this is a fact, correct?
Yeah, it's
No.
self-evident.
That's
I mean,
all I'm asking. I'm only asking for facts. Something that gets a verifiable fact. That's what I'm looking for.
It's my opinion of what's going on based on.
But that's not what I'm looking for.
It's
But
not an
notice I
opinion.
didn't say
Sorry,
opinion.
got to interrupt.
I said
No,
fact.
it's not an opinion. Self-evident fact.
I agree.
Okay, but he didn't say that. He said opinion. That's why I'm trying to get cleared up.
I'll say it. 10th man says it's a fact.
Okay, now can I ask Life a question? Life, why did you say it was an opinion?
Just on the weight of evidence that I have available to me.
I know, but the other people on the panel are saying fact. Why aren't you agreeing with them and saying fact like they are?
Well, what is a fact?
But they're saying fact, so apparently they know what it is. How come you don't?
Well, that's a personal belief on whether or not we have facts or not.
Gotcha. No further questions.
Okay, good, because I don't want to go off on a
I love
tangent
it.
because we're about to analyze what this picture and what it can tell us.
I believe it's a fact. I believe it's a fact because I have, as Slick puts it, experienced land masses. Owning a boat, I've experienced the ocean. And since I've been on land masses, they don't seem to warp or change. They're pretty stable unless there's an earthquake. And since I've been on the ocean and know how the ocean behaves under my boat, I get a good experience of that. And then I look at this picture and I say, oh, wow, it's a mirroring effect. In fact, I've seen pictures where boats are running on air, not even touching the water. It's a mirage. It's some kind of magnification. Doesn't change the actual position of the land or the water. That's a fact to me.
But when you say mirroring effect, what is that? I mean, do you have any experience in verifying what a mirroring effect is?
Yeah, look at it.
And how did you come about that? How did you get this experience?
Right there with my eyes. I'm looking at this video picture.
No, that's not my question.
I'm trying to answer your question. I see the reflection of the land going downwards into the air when it should be meeting with ocean.
That's not my question. I'm asking you, where did you get, in other words, you said it's a mirroring effect. I'm asking you, where did you come upon this knowledge of knowing what a mirroring effect is? Did you study this somewhere or what?
Yes, I've experienced it. I know.
I didn't say experience. I said, did you study it? In other words, you came upon this knowledge. Did you learn it from somewhere? Did you go to school, or are you just making a determination?
No, I have a boat. Before I sold it, I would go to Catalina and I would see something like this. And then when I got closer, it wasn't like this. So
I'm sorry.
It didn't warp in the 26 miles to that distance, depending on the conditions of the day. It presented itself as it was when I was next to it, but when I was far away, it didn't look the same.
Right, but how did you?
Well, it's obvious.
How did you become an expert? No, hold on. How did you become an expert on mirroring effects? I'm wondering where you got knowledge of this from.
He just told you he experienced it himself, man. Come on.
Who was that? Who was that? Why don't you let him answer?
Chocolate.
Well, let him answer, Chocolate. He can talk.
Okay, Chocolate's right. I experience it myself every day. I look in the mirror, and when I look at this, it's the same experience.
Okay, so what you're saying is this mirroring effect you're talking about, you're just coming up with that on your own. You didn't really actually learn about mirroring. Is that correct or not?
Why are you misrepresenting what I just said?
I'm asking. That's why I'm asking the question. I'm trying to get clarity.
I answered it. I said I came up with myself through testing and experiments that I've done by looking in the mirror, and I don't
He's
mean
gonna ask you
scientific
again.
experiments. Of
Okay,
course,
I'll
he
tell you
doesn't.
what.
He doesn't
Okay,
accept beliefs.
listen. I withdraw the question.
Okay, fine. This is the point.
Alrighty.
This is the point what I'm trying to make here. I see that picture. You asked me what it was. I told you what it was, but you don't want to accept it. But you want to say,
Question withdrawn.
okay.
Is there any point to these questions?
Well, no, that means he concedes.
Question withdrawn. You don't have to read in any concession. I just withdrew the question. Thank you.
That's cowardly. Do you concede or not concede that I experienced this?
Listen, I asked you a question. Where did you get your expertise on mirroring? And you told me that you just kind of came up with it on your own. You answered my question. That's why I was done with it.
Oh, I see. Make it up as you go.
Somebody can start a new conversation if they want. I'm all for it.
Certainly.
I bet you are.
The thing I'm interested in is the diffraction limit. The point where things disappear into the distance and how that's been reified into the leading edge of a sphere. That bit fascinates me because when you ask people how any of these effects that they present on the globe side are occurring, they immediately reify their model and just blame it on R in every single instance. So what's causing this? Well, Earth curve. What's causing that? Well, Earth curve's causing that. Nothing's taken into consideration. Only Earth curve. And what we actually have is the very real effect of optics, perspective, angle of attack. All of the things we've been talking about for the last, 6 to 8 months. And it's ironic that we've got conspiracy cats trying to hold me to task on diffraction. I said this earlier on the last show, I think. It was lucky yesterday because we had Bob the Science Guy come in and start to talk to us specifically about the effects of diffraction. And what is diffraction? Well, it's the point where you get interference, where you can no longer resolve, if it was a digital camera, 2 pixels for something that you can identify as being what it is as 2 pixels. When it drops down to 1 pixel and you get interference, diffraction, that is the point that it disappears into the distance. Now, as a mass scale, you've got a diffraction limit, otherwise known as the horizon, where things disappear through their angular limitation in the distance. Now, this is ironic because I find this quite amusing, being held to task on what globe heads don't yet appreciate is the edge of their sphere world, the diffraction limit. I got Life is Short on the panel, and personally, I'd like to talk about that subject.
Yeah, and what I've seen in the comments about that, and Nathan needs to define diffraction and all that stuff, is that diffraction is just a pattern. It's just, you drop a pebble in water, it's going to leave a diffraction pattern. You shine light through a slit, it's going to have a diffraction pattern. Through a circular aperture, it's going to, yield an Aries diffraction pattern. It's just, it's light through an aperture or an energy or a wave through an aperture. It creates a separate angle as it cuts across that physical obstruction. Now, the angle issue is the diffraction limit, right? That's the angular resolution limit. It's based on the Dawes limit, from which Rayleigh took his criteria from, which is essentially what's the smallest when you put 2 diffraction patterns together, what is the smallest distance between the 2 patterns that one says to themselves, I got 2 things here. There's 2 distinct entities here. When do I lose one of those entities? And that occurs at a certain angle. And that's the diffraction angle. That's the Rayleigh criteria for that angle. And so again, it applies to when 2 stars become one. It applies when 1 hair becomes the carpet next to it. It applies to the smallest object that we can see. And so what we've done is we've said, if we know this phenomenon exists, again, how does that relate within perspective? And so that's the argument. Small things, things get smaller with distance. We know a rough idea of how that works with convex lenses. and focal points in front and behind the convex lens, we know that small things disappear. That's the Rayleigh criteria. And when we add those two things together, you can make a reasonable deduction that small things disappear with distance. And that's perspective. And the whole argument is what is a horizon? And that's, to me, the basic argument of this whole thing. Is it a physical thing that you go to and has a location, or is it an optical effect of vision? So
I must admit, after yesterday's conversation with Bob the Fallacy Guy, I thought...
I had a question for him, Nate, too, when you're done.
Sure. I thought, is there
Okay.
a God? For someone like Bob, who has literally reified the horizon into the leading edge of a sphere and been held to task for it, for him to come in and start talking about diffraction was just so beautiful. Wouldn't you agree?
yeah, no, when he said that, sure, yeah, a small thing would disappear. Like when you can see a small bug or a small hair, it was like, wow. Because that's in physics. Like, you can go find that on physics lectures online. That's not new news, you know? And so when he said that, you're like, huh, and that's why I wrote in your comment when you reposted that thing. I was like, they kind of just lost the debate, and they don't quite realize it yet.
Exactly. The diffraction is what you call the edge of a sphere. That limit where things can no longer be resolved is the edge of your vision, and that can be increased with aperture and apparatus. So this has been depicted loads of times, from iPhone to P900, from P900 to telescope. As you increase the aperture of the apparatus itself, you will also increase the angular resolution that you can resolve at distance, therefore effectively increasing your horizons. You can see further. Now, that may be a fact. It doesn't change that there is a limit to how far you can see. Now, that limit is a very real effect of perspective that has been hijacked and called Earth curve. So I just want to make a sincere and heartfelt thanks to Conspiracy Cats. This is number 2. Hopefully we'll get a hat trick out of Conspiracy Cats. So far he's given us the gas pressure without a container argument. Without the container there can be no pressure. Now we've got Conspiracy Cats tagged quite specifically with what is diffraction. Well, isn't that nice that we can now discuss precisely where you reify R into making the diffraction limit the edge of your sphere world. Thanks to Bob, thanks to Cats, thanks also to Rory, who's going to be £5,000 lighter as a consequence of the perspective hijacking curve calculations that he assumed in his globehead way, and the arrogance that they have, that they did include this very real effect of things that are small disappearing with distance, the diffraction limit.
Okay. Right, and they'll come
I had
back.
a question. Oh, I had a question for you because you said something. Life is short. You said reasonable. You said reasonable deduction, and I know I may have said this before, but that's the part that confuses me because water boils at 212. That's not a reasonable deduction. That's a fact. Now, I don't want to put words in Arwen's mouth, but quote me, so tell me if I'm wrong. Arwen has a reasonable deduction that gravity exists.
Okay.
So that's how valuable reasonable deductions are.
Well, I don't like this topic in general. I know it has to be talked about, but I think Nathan was hitting on it earlier when we talk about whether or not things can or can't be proven by a method, by the scientific method. So whether or not the shape of the Earth can be proven by the scientific method is a question. So
that's not what I'm talking about.
Excuse me, you're talking behind my back, sort of, although I'm present. But no, I do not logically deduce that gravity exists at all.
I said, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, you're wrong.
Well, that's good. That's
Can I give an
cleared up
example of reasonable deduction?
I don't use them. I don't use them, so I can't give you one.
I said, can I? I didn't say, can you? I said, can I give an example of reasonable deduction?
Yeah, I just misheard you because your mic sounds terrible. My fault.
Sorry, that's okay. I'm trying to stand up in a better position. Hey, Nathan, have you ever been to London?
Sure.
Okay. Do you know this thing that exists out there called the? Now, I've never experienced this thing at all. I've never experienced it. It's called the Clock Tower of London. Have you seen that?
The what of London?
The Clock Tower of London. The Clock Tower in London.
Sure.
Clock.
Yeah. Yeah. The tower.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never. Yeah. Okay. Now I've seen these bunch of pictures. I'll share it. Hold on a second. Let me get it pulled up here. There's all these kind of pictures online. I don't know if you've seen them, but would this represent what the clock tower looks like? Can you see my picture? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Much smaller
Okay.
in real life, but yeah.
I've never experienced it. Yeah. I've never experienced the clock tower except in pictures online or videos or movies. But I can reasonably assume that the clock tower exists because, for one, Nathan confirms that it exists, and two, there's also photos of it from random sources all over the place. I think it would reasonably assume that I can say that the clock tower of London exists. Would I be wrong in that assumption?
Well, this would be my question. If somebody showed you a picture of the ISS, could you reasonably assume that it's up there?
Oh, Slick, that's a bit unfair. On the last show, you wouldn't let someone do that.
I'm sorry if I did something wrong there.
Well, last time somebody tried to say this.
it.
I think it was 10th Man did the same exact thing and started to say, well, no, it's not the same with our photos when we were talking about Ranty's pictures.
No,
and then
the point that I was
to...
making was, no, hold on. The point that I was making was that he said that based on that photo, he could reasonably deduce that that clock tower was there. So I'm only basing it on that. I'm not just trying to go to space. I'm just saying somebody else can show a photo of something. And do you also reasonably deduce that it's there because you saw a picture? I wasn't trying to be funny. That's my point.
It's a multiple sources question. And with locations and buildings, you can have a large amount of sources from different angles, people that don't know each other, that can confirm somehow in person that it is actually there. And
you can confirm the ISS.
When it comes to space pictures, it's only NASA. Everything goes through NASA.
No, you can confirm the ISS traversing across the moon.
Correct.
You can confirm an object, but you don't know for sure what it is.
Yeah, this comes back to
But why don't you?
So
why not just reasonably deduce it?
This comes back to what I said last time. So in the case of Ranty's pictures or the pictures of Big Ben or any other pictures that are taken on terra firma, we can go and confirm them. We can go and check. We can double check the distances that are alleged. We can go over to the clock and touch it. We can do all of those things to verify it, and pictures are one of them. In the case of the ISS, the light that we see traversing the moon, or occulting the moon, is alleged to be in a second law of thermodynamics violation. So what they claim the light in the sky is, or more specifically where it is, can be completely thrown out, because you can't have that light in the sky traversing through a second law of thermodynamics violation. That can't possibly be the case. So the images that are given to us from the inside of that light in the sky, alleged to be in a second law of thermodynamics violation, can be debunked automatically, because you can't have pictures from a fake place. And the ISS that they show us from the inside are alleged to be in a fake place. That doesn't change the fact there's a light in the sky. In the same way as if you look at Mars, an orange dot in the sky, and they say, well, that orange dot is terra firma, like where you are. Well, there's still a light in the sky, same as the ISS. But the assertion that it's a rock in an infinitely expanding vacuum of space, that can be thrown out the window also. Doesn't change that there's an orange dot in the sky. Doesn't change that there's a dot that they call the ISS in the sky. It's the other pictures that you can debunk, because they're claimed to come from a second law of thermodynamics violation, and you can't go and take those pictures. You can take the pictures of the light from the ground, but you can't take the pictures from the second law of thermodynamics violation. And the same applies when you compare it to Ranty's pictures, the pictures of Big Ben, these pictures on screen now. If I make a claim about them, you can go and double check. You can't visit space.
Okay. Now, I got another question for you, because you said that you can verify Big Ben, correct? That's something that you can go and do. Now, you said that a second ago, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about before you went and verified it? Can you verify it before you've done that?
No, it's a logical consistency. So because
right, so that's my point. Hold on. So that's my point. See, the thing that I'm trying to say is that once you go and verify it for yourself firsthand, now you verified it. But before that point, all you have is a reasonable deduction that it's there, but that doesn't guarantee
true.
it. That's my only point.
Yeah, well, that might be true. So Gary Awesome had the same argument with me and equivocated using the Eiffel Tower. So he said, look, if I'm to assert that the Eiffel Tower isn't real simply because I've been there, same argument, right? Well, no, because there's no claim that the Eiffel Tower exists in a region that can't possibly be real, like Narnia. So if they show me the lamppost in Narnia and say, well, I've never experienced this lamppost, but are you going to tell me the lamppost isn't real? Well, it exists in Narnia, a fake place. So yeah, automatically the lamppost is fake because it's claimed to be a lamppost in Narnia. Does that mean that the lamppost physically isn't real? Well, no, there might be a lamppost in existence, but there's not a lamppost in Narnia. And the same applies with the pictures from the ISS. So yes, there are pictures of men looking like they're spinning around on high wires. Sorry, my bad. Looking like they're floating in 0G. Well, those pictures do exist. Matter of fact, they are real pictures of something. Even if you say, okay, well, they're CGI render, it doesn't matter. They do exist. You can see them on a screen. But, like the lamppost, the pictures are claimed to be in a fake place. So you can automatically discount those as fake, fraud, forgery, because they're claimed to be in a fake place. But you can verify the pictures on screen, Ranty's pictures, the pictures of Big Ben, the Eiffel Tower, and it's not claimed to be in a place that violates the second law of thermodynamics. So there's no problem with the existence of Big Ben. There's no critical flaw in the fundamental premise of its existence to begin with. But there is when you start offering up pictures from a fake place, a fake medium, the vacuum of space. Right. That bit can't exist. Right. Therefore, the pictures aren't real.
That's why I moved on from that. I wasn't talking about the ISS. I had moved away from that because that wasn't a good example. I'm talking about the Big Ben picture. What I was saying was that you said that once you see the picture, you can verify Big Ben by going there and actually seeing it. Now that's verification, but before you get to that point, you can only reasonably deduce that it exists because you haven't verified it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, there's nothing wrong with. There's nothing. My point. Hold on, let me just round that out. There's nothing wrong with reasonably deducing that the Eiffel Tower exists or Big Ben exists. Or I've not been to the Taj Mahal, so I've not seen the Taj Mahal, but I can reasonably deduce that it exists, even though I've not experienced it. And there's no logical inconsistency when there's thousands of photographs and people who have been, and I've talked to people who've seen the Taj Mahal. So that's not unreasonable. But it is unreasonable to accept the pictures from space or from Narnia as being what they assert. This place, Narnia, is real because I've got a picture from it. Here's a lamppost. I've got a picture of the inside of the light in the sky that you see. Therefore, space is real. Well, no, that's not a reasonable and logical conclusion to come to. But the Big Ben one, or the Eiffel Tower one, or the Taj Mahal one, absolutely is, because there's plenty of evidence to suggest that it exists for you to make that reasonable conclusion, unlike with space.
On that note, Nathan, I reasonably deduced and believed that the tower existed, Big Ben, as well as the Eiffel Tower. And when I was in Europe, I went there and personally saw it. I went to a place where I believed it would be, but I had never been there yet. But when I got there, it verified all the pictures that logically prove it actually exists on this terra firma. And your contrast to space is beautiful because we can't go there.
I keep saying I'm not talking about space. I eliminated that a long time ago, so you don't have to keep bringing up space.
I'm talking to Nathan about his.
Well, how am I? My fault. My fault. I didn't know that.
Yeah. In fact, I have a question. We have the Leaning Tower of Pisa. We know it's on a slant. I've seen it. I've been there. Some others maybe have seen it too. Others only have seen it in the picture. Is there a way that some person in the flat Earth worldview can get to a place in distance and make that building look straight to prove the curve?
I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. So
He's
somebody
saying
else can
the
have that.
1 degree every 69 miles could be applied to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and you could bring it back into straightness by using Earth curve to correct the slant. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I get it.
Yes,
It's pretty out there.
I like that.
I like it just for the farcical nature of it. It's pretty out there.
We should do it. Someone out there should do that, because you can prove the Earth is curving by being at the right angle, at the right distance, and using the curve to straighten it.
Of course, you'd have to see all the other buildings then looking slanted by comparison, which you're never going to achieve either. But it's a nice it's a nice thought experiment.
But isn't that the point? We don't see any buildings slanting over a curve.
Exactly.
Yep.
We just see the bottom up
about
disappearing.
it, but yeah.
We just see the bottom up disappearing. Just like when you put an ore in the ocean or straw on the glass, it changes shape. Big deal. It's still straight.
And with that, I'm going to say, if you're watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. However, if you're watching on Nathan Oakley 1980 live, this is where we bid you farewell. But I will say a massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of you for tuning in to this live debate, smashing the super chat, subscribing if you've not done so already. Also, of course, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making today's live debate possible. If you need something to keep you occupied after the live debate is over, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!